Alrighty, all my gamer friends. It is January 28th. It's another Sunday. We're almost through the first month of 2024 already. Weekly roundup. It's a couple of news that I can cover. Nothing too crazy. It's been a kind of a slow week, but there is something that happened in the industry in general that I want to touch on. It affects the whole industry, and it's a thing that happens, unfortunately, all the time. All that we'll get into after the intro. Alright, don't forget to like and subscribe. And over here on Collider, from a new interview with, as it says in the title, Halo Season 2 resets the tone and expands on the game, but Master Chief is still taking off the helmet. If all you're doing is recreating the same experience you had when you played the video game, then what are you adding to the franchise? Big picture, Halo Season 2 brings big changes, including a new showrunner, David Weiner, who has a well-thought-out vision for the series. The costumes in Season 2 have been upgraded and improved aesthetically, but are still heavy and challenging to move in. Gamers will recognize and appreciate certain specifics in Season 2, and the show has received massive international feedback and success. It's no secret that video game adaptations are a tricky beast, with so much more lore to mine through from an entire franchise and dedicated fan base. Paramount Plus's Halo series managed to capture the action of the beloved game through impressive sequences and A+ performances. I don't know about any of that. Notably from the show's lead, who takes on the controversial helm of John or Master Chief. Even before the show premiered, a second season was greenlit, but changes were in store for production. No offense to Pablo Schreiber as an actor, but he was miscast hardcore. I can't think of who else could be a good replacement. Maybe even Henry Cavill. I don't know. Let's be honest. Cavill could play pretty much any lead character. And considering there's rumors he might be playing Commander Shepard in Mass Effect, which would be cool. Ahead of the streamer Season 2, Collider's Steve Weintraub and a group of other reporters visited the set in Hungary, where they got to chat with the cast and creators behind Halo. A big topic of discussion while talking to Schreiber and co-star Kate Kennedy, who plays Kai 125 in the show, was the onboarding of Season 2 showrunner and the adjustments made with his joining the show. How much of your costumes are the real thing and how much of it is CGI because they look like they're heavy? Our costumes are all real. Pablo, costumes are real. Laughs. Yeah, they're new this year. We've got a new costume designer and they've been upgraded. They spent months trying to learn from the feedback of last year and make them new and improved. I think they look really fantastic. Aesthetically, I think they're definitely improved. The look is much improved. Functionally, I just don't know how much more you're going to improve those hunks of plastic. They look great. They work great. So that's all we're focused on. Can you tell us a little about where we will meet you in the start of Season 2 after how Season 1 ended with Cortana and John becoming one? Are you back with everybody again? What is it, like 6 months later? How far later is it? Schreiber, yeah, 4 or 5 or 6 months, something like that. There's a bit of time gap. I think that's probably almost all we're allowed to reveal. But a bit of time has passed, and all the things that were set in stone at the end of Season 1 are set in stone at the top of Season 2. There has been some changes, and time has passed. So exactly where we are, I can't tell you until you tune in. That's the broad stroke. Do you think people can start Season 2 if they haven't seen Season 1 and not be lost? How integral is the plot and story and development of everyone in Season 1? I think you'd be able to grasp what's going on. Yeah, they both said, I think. Yeah, I think you could jump in on Season 2, but there's no need to because it's on Paramount. When you make the first season of a show, you're learning the infrastructure of how you can make something like this, how many stunts you can do in a week, and just everything about it. How is making Season 2 different than the first season because of how much you learned making the first season? So much. I think obviously the biggest change is we have a new showrunner. David Weiner is our showrunner for Season 2, and that's the biggest change because essentially we're paid to live in worlds that other people create. So this year we're living in David Weiner's world, and he's an incredibly intelligent guy with a really well thought out vision, and it's a story that to live in and a world that I'm happy to live in. I'm really excited to be telling the story of this version. So that was the biggest change from Season 1 to Season 2. But in terms of logistics and all that kind of stuff, yeah, it's a massive show. You don't really appreciate it until you're in the middle. think that was also one of the growing pains, is that it's David's first time doing a show of this magnitude. So he came in with all his preconceived notions of what would he like to work on a show this big. But then his mind was blown away by how big it was. So he's going through his own learning process while we already went through the first season. So we're meeting somewhere in the middle. It's a massive show that you have to take your lessons as they come. A lot of those were above our pay grade as actors. They're producer questions. And that's another factor, is that you can only do so much as an actor. You can bring to life the world that you're given to bring to life. So you can offer your ideas or opinions. It's up to people to implement those. Get used to seeing Pablo Schreiber's face in Halo Season 2. It's not going anywhere. Obviously, you're dealing with very, I would say, conservative funding. Conservative funding. Does that mean it doesn't have the biggest budget? What was the reaction to the feedback? Gamers are very often give negative feedback on all the creative liberties that showrunners take while plotting something that is a video game adaptation. So what would you say to gamers that are not happy with certain decisions? For example, Master Chief taking his helmet off. Well, that one you're going to have to get used to. We established that in the first season that was going to happen. That's what our show is about. It's about exploring the dynamic between John and Master Chief. So if you're not on board with that one, you might as well give up. As far as what I can say to gamers, come on back and see the difference between Season 1 and Season 2. And see if you like it. And as far as the feedback that came in, it's massive across the board. The show was incredibly well received internationally as well as domestic, but the numbers we did internationally for Paramount are off the charts and insane. I don't know if I've ever seen the numbers for that. So we're pretty happy with where we landed in terms of feedback and in terms of business that we did for the network. Now it's about creating the kind of show that we can all be most proud of. And that's a mission that I'll never give up on. I'm going to push that until I die or until I'm asked to leave. I want to make the best show possible, and I want to try to surround myself with people that are helping to do that. Don't get me wrong, I'm a gamer myself, and I don't want to see the same story on screen. That would be pointless. The Last of Us obviously proved you can pretty much take the exact same story and put it on screen and it'd be amazing. So, Kennedy, I think David's done a good job of this season of establishing and developing the characters that we already know. And then he's brought in some new characters. I think the gamers will be happy with certain spy sci-fi within this series. I can't reveal what they are, but they are things that they'll recognize. Last year, when I was talking to Pablo in the junket, you were already very excited about David coming. He said this season would be darker and more grounded as a war story. So I'm wondering, in practical terms, what does that mean? How do we explore the intergalactic part this time? Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm most happy with and seeing the results this year. It just feels vastly more authentic. The tone is the biggest improvement that I've seen from the footage that we shot. Darker is a description of the tonal palette more than, I'll say, the drama. It's more the visuals. It is dark in other ways as well, but it's mostly the visual palette. It's one of the things when you're working with the costumes that are plastic and not real. You have to hide that a little bit. And one of the best ways to hide that is if the visual palette is darker. If there's more between the camera and the thing that you're shooting, if the camera is more alive and in the action, everything feels more authentic and more real. You feel like you're in the action, and the action is more subjective. So that is a tonal. So that tonal shift for me is the biggest thing that I'm most happy with. And it's a function of the person who's telling the story, creating the world that we're living in. That's when I say I'm happy to live in this world. It's one of the shifts that I'm the most happy with. Kennedy, there's a huge difference in the action sequences this season. I think they look so impressive and very visceral because you're following them in a different way. But then we also straddle the personal stories of the effects of war as well in a stronger way this season too. So it's a good dichotomy of both. I really enjoyed the evolution of Cortana and relationship where it ended up in the finale. I'd love to hear from you now that these two are kind of working together. Does that call for changes to you when Cortana is in control? Can you talk about what that is doing for John and what that's doing for your performance in Season 2? As I said, certain things that are set in stone at the end of Season 1 may not be set in stone at the end of Season 2, but one of the things you're dealing with when you talk about John and Cortana is that you're dealing with a relationship that's steady through the video games. It's a functional relationship. She's your tour guide through the video games, and she's you through the video games. So that relationship by nature can't change that much in the dynamic of the video games. So if you're telling a long-form series, you don't go right to whatever the relationship is in the games immediately because you've lost the opportunity to tell some kind of arc or some kind of story. So that relationship evolved over the course of season 1, and it will continue to evolve over the course of season 2. I think it goes to some very interesting places in season 2. I'm curious to hear what you think about that when you see it. I'm not sure how many episodes this season is. Kennedy, it's 8. Schreiber, are we allowed to say that last? Huh? What do you think the big challenge of this, not only in front of camera, but outside? Kennedy, just raising the bar, getting better, making it better. Schreiber, getting better, yeah. I mean, you always want to continue to try to improve things, and that's been the fight. That's the thing that you can see when you look at the screen, as you can mark the improvement in very real ways. And so that just feels exciting. But the challenge is, again, when I say this is a massive show, it goes hand in hand with the fact that the challenges are huge. And across the board, the challenge of bringing the costumes to life has always been a massive challenge. And continues to be. I think we went a long way in shooting it in a way that really helps that. So it's a challenge that I think we rose to this season. You started filming this season in Iceland, and I know that's part of the first 2 episodes. What does that location bring to the series that will be unique that wasn't in season 1? It's just so beautiful aesthetically. It was so impressive there. And to start there, I think it really set the tone for the rest of the season because we weren't in the studios that we know so well. It was like a really lovely new discovery. But I think it's just the vastness, the space. It was huge. The conditions were very interesting at the time. We were in the midst of a storm, like a grade 5 storm or something crazy. It kind of really helped raise the stakes of the whole piece. And then shooting under a waterfall. Shooting under a waterfall, yeah, it was mad. What a start, actually. Maybe this is too spoilery. Maybe not. I think scope is in the thing that adds the most, you know? The show is this massive sci-fi futuristic opera epic, right? When it's functioning its best, it should be. It should be massive in scale. It should span centuries and galaxies. And that's a hard amount of scope to bring to the screen on any budget. And so, trying to set the scale and scope and the size of a landscape, the impressiveness of a landscape when you're going from this planet to that planet, to really put that on screen, Iceland offers you the opportunity to shoot nature that's just kind of mind-blowing, that feels otherworldly and like you're on a different planet. To what extent do you use the games as your point of reference while approaching your characters? I just had a flatmate that was a big Halo fan, so I knew about it, but I wasn't a massive, huge gamer. But yeah, I know quite a lot about it. So yeah, Kennedy is British, I guess, because on the show she speaks regular American, so I didn't know that she was British, as most British people are excellent at talking like Americans. Schreiber, the games are the blueprint. The games are what people love and what they interact with, so it had to be a touchstone. It was to be the first thing you could relate to, and it was for me. I'm not a massive gamer myself, so it wasn't for me about playing the games. For me, it was about studying all the connective tissue that's in the game, everything that's been established in the 5 mainland games, and looking at all the cinematics, because that's the story that gets told to you when you're experiencing it. I played it some, but it would take me so long to get through all the games where it was sort of not a function to my process. So that was a touchstone. That was a piece to start with because it was what most people who come to the IP begin their Halo interaction with. That being said, making a TV show, by necessity, you want to create a different experience than what you had when you play the video game. If all you're doing is recreating the same experience you had when you played the video game, then what are you adding to the franchise? You're not adding anything. So it was a touchstone. He likes that word. It was the beginning point. It was the thing that I think everyone who works on this show is very reverential about and want to get right. But then it was also the thing that you had to expand upon, and you had to find a way to put it into a context that was going to work for this medium that telling the story in. Will Halo Season 2 explore the Covenant more? I have to say, what I always liked about Halo is that even though we have these good guy, bad guy division, the Covenant actually has a very legit motivation what we're doing. Will you explore more of that in Season 2? Because I think that the TV show does it better than the games. Actually, when it comes to showing their side of things. Yeah, we definitely go into the Covenant State mentality. Through one particular character, you explore it. Two characters together, you explore it a little further and a little deeper. It's one of my favorite things about the games, too, is how you're constantly learning both sides. I wouldn't say your allegiance is ever with the Covenant, but at least their opinion is expressed, and you learn that story. I believe that the opportunity for that, while we do flesh it out more than we did in the first season, I believe the real fleshing out and the real Covenant perspective will come in subsequent seasons. So you're saying there are definitely going to be more seasons? Halo Season 2 resets the series tone. I know it's only Season 2 and who knows how long the show goes for, but do you guys have a final destination or completions of arcs in mind for your characters? And for the show as a whole? It's pretty early to ask that. Where do you hope it goes? Has anyone talked about that at all when it's all said and done with? Whether it's Season 2 or Season 3, do you have places that you already have discussed? This is where it could go. This is where we want it to go. Is that even a conversation at this point? Again, the beauty of our job is that it's relatively simple. We bring other people's worlds to life. We don't have to decide on what our character arc is or where it goes. We can certainly have some influence on that. It's one of my major goals is to have a long-reaching plan for subsequent seasons. We just switched showrunners at the beginning, so I think the conversation now is the problem is with the show is so big and it takes so long to get it going because of visual effects and to finish it that we're trying to get the season to going as fast as possible. Now, when we finish the season, it's a golden opportunity for everyone to sit down and talk about, like, what does the larger landscape look like? Because I think we did a lot of great work in kind of resetting some things from first season to put it in place that feels tonally better. Totally more appropriate. And now we have a real opportunity to be like, okay, so what's a long play here? Okay, that's all I'm going to cover now for that interview because it's going on like 28 minutes and I want to cover other stuff. I'll post the entire interview below. I tried to just cover topics that seemed more interesting about how Season 2 is going to be different. So you can read the rest of that below. Here we go over on CBR, and who is working on a Warhammer 4K adaptation. Acclaimed actor Henry delves into his feelings about featuring the Warhammer 4K live-action adaptation currently in development. Henry Cavill was given a brief but positive update on the process of his fascinating Warhammer 1000 adaptation for Amazon. In late 2022, Cavill was also announced as leading the producing a Prime Video-backed adaptation of Warhammer in the wake of its contentious departures from the role of Superman and The Witcher. Cavill, while promoting his latest film, Argylle, spoke with Collider's Steve Weintraub and was able to offer a brief but encouraging update on the status of the project. Warhammer is progressing very well, he said, but things are happening and we are all very excited. While details about the creative team behind the project are yet to be revealed, Cavill's A-list status would ensure there are substantial interest and backing in the show. Prime Video has invested heavily in fantasy series already, in the case of The Lord of the Rings: Rings of Power, which was a massive gamble for the streamer that paid off handsomely. Cavill is an ideal fit for the role as his passion shines through whenever he talks about it. He even spent the lockdown period of the pandemic decorating Warhammer figurines. At the time his involvement was announced in 2022, Cavill expressed his excitement as taking part in the franchise, revealing that he was a lifelong fan. I have loved Warhammer since I was a boy, making this moment truly special for me. The opportunity to shepherd the cinematic universe from its inception is quite the honor and the responsibility. I couldn't be more grateful for all the hard work put in by Vertigo, Amazon, and Games Workshop to make this happen. One step closer to making a nigh-on lifelong dream come true. Alright, so the rest of the article is a brief history of Warhammer 40,000, which I don't want to get into. So over here on Rock, Paper, Shotgun, the Final Fantasy series, whatever, won't be the next video game adaptation TV series which they were planning, as The Witcher producers' live-action project did. Amazon came closest to signing the MMO adaptation, but scale and size needed to do it right to prove too much. I don't know, considering it's Final Fantasy, why would they go with 14? The choice. Like, that's just a weird choice. Why would they pick 14 out of all the games in the entire series that they could have adapted? A planned live-action adaptation of MMO FF15 is officially dead, according to the TV series producers. The live-action FF14 series was announced back in 2019 as a collaboration between Sony Pictures Television and production company HiveMind, known for working on series including Netflix The Witcher and The Expanse. It would have been the first time that the world of Final Fantasy had been seen live action, following CG films such as Spirits Within and Final Fantasy Advent Children. This show is about embracing and embodying all of the elements that have made the mythos such as an endlessly captivating phenomenon. Sony Pictures co-president Chris Parnell said at the time, "It's an immense honor to be bringing all of Erosa's iconic character settings and concepts, including fan favorites like Sid and of course the Chocobos." The adaptation got as far as a pilot script from writers Ben Lustig and Jake Thornton that HiveMind co-producer Danish Sandansky produced on Twitter X. Twix is fantastic. The pilot was accompanied by plans for multiple seasons to put together with series showrunners, but the ambition was across the board. The size and scale needed to do it right proved too much for anyone to risk. Amazon came the closest. Right, so down here is a Twitter little post from just a few days ago. Someone was asking about it. "Hello, Dinesh. I have questions I wanted to ask. What happened to the FF14 live action project? Any updates?" Dead. We took around a fantastic pilot by Ben Lustig and Jake Thornton, along with a multi-season plan they built with our showrunners but got rejected across the board. Like up here it said, the size and scale needed to do it right proved too much for anyone to want to risk. Amazon came the closest. Thornton also replied saying that the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic meant studios began to purse strings, just as the series was being shopped around. While multiple seasons and showering of awards for The Last of Us, Amazon's upcoming Fallout show, and Halo finally making it to the small screen, some might hope that a Final Fantasy series could one day appear. I still think it does. I still don't get why they would pick 14. I mean, I've never played 14, so I don't know. Sham Dacini seemed less convinced. Asked whether it could instead work as an animated series, as with Castlevania, Devil May Cry, and their recent stop-motion Pokemon Concierge, he expressed his doubt. Harder, to be honest, and the rights are back in Japan, unfortunately. Well, Japan could adapt it too, but they'll probably just go animated again. That's that, then it seems. Given the past track record of Final Fantasy adaptations, some may feel that this was a machinist bullet dodged. Right, so like I mentioned in the intro, I was going to cover a video game in general topic that isn't about adaptations, but something that will affect the entire gaming industry. There was a huge layoff between Xbox after they just recently acquired Activision Blizzard, and they actually did a bunch of layoffs. This article is coming from Lance, and this was from 2 days ago. Video game apocalypse. Thousands of LA workers lose their jobs. Activision Blizzard and Riot Games are best known for League of Legends and Warcraft. Actually, I didn't know that Riot Games was involved too. I thought it was just Xbox. The writers, designers, and programmers who make a living figuring out new ways to cut off heads and blow things up got a big job themselves this week, when thousands of workers in the video game industry were cut. Microsoft laid off 1,900 employees at Xbox and Santa Monica-based Activision Blizzard, and 430 lost their jobs at Riot Games in West LA. The video game industry generated an estimated $188 billion in worldwide revenue in 2023, compared to the movie industry's $9 billion in U.S. and Canadian ticket sales. See, that's what I don't understand, because it happens so often. They made $188 billion. Video games destroys any other entertainment industry, music, movies, anything, streaming. It destroys it every year, and there's layoffs. I don't get that. But I also don't really know the gaming industry. Besides, the two industries have long fed off each other, with the HBO adaptation of the game Last of Us sweeping the Emmys. I wish it did. And Nintendo's Mario starring in last year's #2 movie, wedged in between Barbie and Oppenheimer. A month later, prestige actor Taron Egerton starred in a diplomatic biopic about the origin of Tetris, which is on Apple TV. A website dedicated to tracking layoffs estimates the number of cuts industry-wide in the last year was more than 14,000. So last year, 14,000 or more people lost their jobs in the game industry, even though it made $188 billion a year. Riot, best known for League of Legends, offered staff severances. Riot, best known for League of Legends, offered staff severances, bonuses, counseling, and visa support for foreign workers. I hope they did. There are 9,000 high-tech workers in Greater LA who depend on the 1B visa to stay in the country, whatever that is. I'm a Canadian, so I don't know what that means. President Mike Ybarra and Chief Design Officer Alan Adham of Activision Blizzard, known for the World of Warcraft, are part of the cut. I don't know why they would cut. The company was founded by 3 UCLA grads in 1991 at Silicon and Synapse, and hit it big with Warcraft 3 years later. The founders of Riot Games were from USC. One thing this article failed to mention was that they also canceled a development game that was in development at Blizzard called Odyssey, which I'm not even sure what I'd seen about that game, but it's supposed to be some type of survival game. And that got canceled too, so interesting changes happening over at Activision Blizzard, especially considering they were just finally completely bought out by Microsoft last year after a while of legal issues and whatnot. But yes, all very unfortunate indeed, but this is also part of the gaming industry. It happens every year. All right, people, well, that is it for the week. So this is Sunday, January 28th. We're almost done 2024. It really sucks for all those people who just got laid off at the beginning of the year. Imagine getting laid off at the beginning of the next year, probably thinking that, hey, you were doing good, you're secure, and all of a sudden, boom, you're laid off. But I'm sure these people probably got pretty nice severance packages. I mean, they were laid off, they weren't fired, so that's a whole other unfortunate thing. But in terms of adaptations, also let me know what you think below. Give me some comments. Are you excited about Halo Season 2? I actually think it looks way better than Season 1, so I'm interested in seeing it. But until then, don't forget, like and subscribe, and to keep gaming.